To discuss the latest information about Charlie Kirk's assassination, joining us now is Greg Shaffer, retired FBI special agent on the elite hostage rescue team. He's also the principal and chief operation officer for the Active Shooter Prevention Project. Greg, good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us. So it appears that new details indicate that Robinson arrived approximately 25 minutes before the shooting, and then he positioned himself atop the Lost Sea Center. It was about 160 yards away from Kirk's tent. So can you talk to us about the pre-planning that would have gone into this?
Yeah, that's one of the unanswered questions we have right now that need to be resolved. Is he lived over 300 miles away, I believe, from the campus. In order for him to gain access to the roof, he had to have known where the access point would have been, whether it was a stairwell or whether he had to climb aboard the rooftop. There had to have been some kind of advance work done to allow him access to the rooftop. Additionally, I'm not sure how far in advance it was determined where Charlie was going to be sitting and where the tent was going to be placed. But it's a large campus; it could have been placed anywhere. So there was definitely some pre-planning involved, and getting to the root of when that was done and done by whom and how he got the information. That needs to be answered quickly.
Can you talk to us about the shot here, 160 yards away? Would that have been a difficult shot?
No, not really. With a good weapon system and a good optic, within a half hour's time frame, I could teach you how to shoot very accurately at 200 yards with a good weapon system. In fact, it's my opinion that he wasn't that good of a shot based on where the hit was finally hit on Charlie on his left side of his neck. At that distance, 200 yards, an individual who is either an avid hunter or a sniper or knows weapons very well, he's going to aim at one of two places. He is going to aim at center body mass, or he's going to aim at the head. Well, if he's aiming at the head, then his shot was about a foot low and to the right. If he was aiming for center body mass, his shot was about a foot high and to the right. So although it was a very, obviously a fatal round, it was not a very accurate round.
So I was talking to guests about this on the day that this happened, and they were really confident that this kind of shot, where it hit around the neck area, would have been really difficult for Charlie to survive. What is your opinion on that?
Well, as soon as the video came on the networks, before it was taken off the air because of graphic content, you could see that the round did hit his carotid or his jugular vein. There was just the vast amount of blood that was literally spraying out of his body. I knew right away that was probably a fatal hit. In fact, that hit was so effective that even if you had a trauma surgeon standing right there on the stage with them, I don't think a trauma surgeon would have been able to save his life. It took out his entire carotid artery, which is unsurvivable.
Wow, that is very unfortunate. Greg, can you also talk to us about the speed of this investigation? Kash Patel, FBI director, was releasing information about this. He was saying it took somewhere just 33 hours.
Yeah, that's very quick, being that he was finally located, a couple hundred miles away. Again, a lot of unanswered questions. I've seen reports putting out by the governor and by the prosecuting attorney and by the FBI that he wore different clothes from when he drove there to when he took the shot to when he drove away. I've heard stories about he disassembled the weapon and left a screwdriver on the rooftop, but then was somehow able to reassemble it and then left the weapon behind, which is just critical evidence. I'm not sure why you would leave the weapon behind. And the other thing that really strikes me as odd, and it definitely needs to be delved into a little bit more, the text messages yesterday were read by the prosecuting attorney. And some of that verbiage is just not verbiage that a 22-year-old would use in my eyes. It sounds very suspicious. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but he goes on to say that, he wanted to circle back to get his rifle, or the area was swept, beforehand. The area was clear except for a squad car. He stated that the first guy they arrested, the older gentleman that was arrested on site, that he was interrogated. So interrogated, squad car, area clear, area has been swept, circled back. That's all terminology that's used in the military and police world. I'm just not sure that my 22-year-old kids would be using that kind of vernacular in text messages. That really seems odd to me.
Yeah, that is very interesting that you point this out. Where do you think he got this information, this vocabulary? I mean, is it entirely possible perhaps he was researching this? I mean, I'm purely speculating now, but we have tools like ChatGPT now.
I don't know where that vernacular came from. Again, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it rings very odd and very strange to me. And again, there are more questions that need to be answered than answers that we have at this particular time.
How important was
I mean, we also know that there was well over 20 different people on a chat stream he was having as well. So all those leads need to be, ironed out and those questions answered as well as who may have known, prior to the incident happening, who might have known that he was going to do this horrific act.
How important was surveillance footage and the photos released in aiding his capture?
Well, I think it's critical. The fact that they didn't release the photographs until they put it through, I'm sure, facial recognition software. I know they did collect some DNA evidence on the rooftop. So I'm sure they put that through the databases in the system and came up negative, and therefore were forced to release the photograph in order to use the public as part of the investigation. And that generally works out pretty well. If you have a picture of the individual, it doesn't take long for the FBI to finally catch their guy, and this is a good example of that.
Do you think the FBI would have been successful in arresting this suspect if he didn't confess to his family, if his family didn't step up, to aid this investigation? Do you think the FBI could have done it without them?
I'm not sure, and that raises another question. If he admitted it to his family, why is he now denying it to the FBI? Again, some strange things in this case that just make my thought process as a trained investigator. It just doesn't ring true or ring right, and there's something fishy going on, as they say. But kudos to the family. That was a very, very difficult decision to make. I'm sure that they are still wrestling with that decision today. But it was the right thing to do. It just tears at your heartstrings to know that not only has the Charlie Kirk family been devastated, but the family of the shooter has also been devastated by his actions.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And Greg, let me just ask you one more thing. Do you think there was anything that could have been done to deter or prevent this shooter from taking that shot?
Well, I definitely think there was a security lapse, for lack of a better word. You had a 2017 Mandalay Bay sniper incident where he killed 58 people in Las Vegas. Then you had the Butler shooting in Pennsylvania where the president was almost killed. And then you had a Mar-a-Lago sniper incident on the golf course. So just very recently, you had 3 sniper incidences, and particularly Butler, Pennsylvania, and in Mar-a-Lago. That was just last year, very recently. I'm not sure why the security team did not have a plan of action to address the rooftops and to have some kind of counter sniper capability, whether it's just a man with binoculars looking on rooftops and in windows, or whether it's a true counter sniper team, or why not place a police officer or a security personnel on top of those roofs to have a really good overview of where Charlie was speaking. So I think that's a lapse in the security plan, as well as the fact that they didn't have EMS on site. Again, when I do a lot of these events, I secure a lot of special events. I always have EMS on hand. You have an outdoor event. Who knows when somebody gets stung by a bee and has an anaphylactic shock, or falls down and breaks an ankle, or suffers a heart attack, or something like this with Charlie. I mean, you need trained medical personnel, right there on site that you can throw them in the back of the ambulance and get them to the hospital as soon as possible.
Greg, I wouldn't be surprised if after this event there will be more measures to protect more high-profile figures in public speeches or events such as this. Well, it was very insightful hearing your comments today, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you.